Okay, recording started. Ivo, hearty welcome to you, to the CTT family, and thank you so much for coming in today to have these program on ontological coaching and its impact. Rajat is currently in the flight to Bangalore.
Right.
We have an ICF conclave for the first time happening in India, and that's happening tomorrow. So he's visiting for that. So he couldn't join the session today, but he has sent his hearty thanks through me to you and to all the participants who are joining in. Over to you. You can give a quick introduction, and you can, the floor is yours. You can start on.
All right, then I'll get started.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Arvind. Thank you for the kind and short introduction. It's wonderful being here with all of you tonight. As I understand, most, but perhaps not all of us are coaches, but we do share a common interest in coaching. And I'm happy to be engaged with you in the realm of ontological learning, which is the topic for tonight. So, like you said, Arvind, so why don't I start off with giving a brief introduction about myself and NewField, and perhaps that allows for a few other people to join in the conversation as well before we delve into the topic of ontological coaching. Yeah?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so my name is Ivo. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I'm currently the CEO of NewField Asia. I'm also a NewField certified ontological coach and PCC with the ICF. Working hard on the hours to go to MCC, and maybe I can join in some of your celebration that you're planning to have shortly. I'm based in Singapore. I've been living here for 5 years with my family, and when I say my family, that's my wife Milang, with whom I've been together for 28 years now. Milang works at Mondelez as CMO in this region. And in that capacity, she's responsible for Cadbury's. I think the chocolate brand most of you in India will know. And as you can understand, my fridge is full with chocolate, with dairy and chocolate. Together we have 3 children: Yasmin, Dion, and Dante. So 1 girl, 2 boys. They are 14, 12, and 10. All going to school. What else is there to share? Probably a lot, but oh yeah, well, this is something I think you should know about me. I'm a passionate football fan. I still play myself, and I coach all my 3 children's soccer teams, so including my girl, she's playing soccer as well. So there's a lot of soccer conversation going on around in our room.
Awesome.
So that's a bit about me. So then, NewField. Maybe I can see some hands. Has any one of you heard of NewField or NewField Asia? I see a couple of hands here. I see 1, 2. Okay, good. So let me 3. Okay, so let me give you a quick snapshot, because NewField Asia, eventually my sharing around this topic evolves into ontological learning, which is at the heart of our organization. So NewField Asia, we're founded by 2 former Unilever guys from the UK that have been delivering high-impact transformational trainings to senior leadership for the past 20 plus years. Unilever was also one of their starting clients, and one of the highlights, I think, of the start was that they contributed to the Dove campaign for real beauty. That was a starting point where Dove started showing not abnormal models, skinny models, but real women in their campaigns. And they were at the starting point of that. It's been a while ago. At that time, training was the buzzword. And gradually, I think, like most of us know, over the years, once that we started working with coaches alongside of our trainers, we started getting a lot of questions from companies, big multinational companies like the Unilevers. Are your coaches certified? And that was before coaching was really, really hot, so to say. But we at NewField, we declared that we wanted to develop world-class coaches next to our trainings and started to explore that. And we hired a lady called Peggy O'Neill. She was assistant attorney to the Attorney General, who served in 2 of Bill Clinton's terms. And she, together with a founder partner, Mark Hampstead, they took 2 years and looked at the entire coaching industry. Long story short, they eventually came up with 5 coaching schools that they assessed at that time as being top class in the world. They flew around and attended those programs. And that were those programs that shared the depth that they assessed that they had in their trainings as well. And really, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, really engage with people on the level of being. And a couple of names that you might know, it's CTI, New Ventures West, Academy of Executive Coaches, Integral Coach in Canada, and NewField. That was one of them. And they entered the coach programs, and for them, they found NewField to be the number one. As they said, leading by head and shoulders above the rest. And in a way, it was not surprising because NASA and McKinsey were at that time only using NewField. And in their assessment, a very holistic, complete program, deep-rooted in philosophy and in education. We ventured with the founder of NewField in the US and its facilitators, and we brought the program to Asia 10 years ago. And we've been running our ICF accredited program, co-training program out of Singapore ever since. And as of now, we have the rights to work globally. The former CEO of the USA, of NewField CEAs and Chile operations are on our team, as well as most of the former US coaches. So like I said, I'm currently the CEO, as well as one of the NewField certified coaches. So for tonight, I would say I have the slightest intention to bring the depth and the richness of a 9 full month, or the full 9-month program into this 1 hour. But I do want to give you an introduction into ontological coaching and to introduce some of the distinctions for the sake of the learning of all of us here. So let's see. So let's get started here. In terms of mechanics, I will start off with, there's going to be a bit of a lecture. There's a couple of exercises I would really like and invite you to participate in. Towards the end of the hour, there'll be some time for Q&A, and you can, anytime you can go off mute or into the chat. But bear with me for a little while, and that's my request to you. So the body of work is ontological coaching, and next that it sounds pretty interesting as a term, but I want to create a little bit of engagement here together with you. So what do you think it means, or what is your understanding of what it means? And you can either come off mute or you can put it in the chat, whatever is your preference way to communicate.
The question is about ontology itself,
yes.
Ivo, or
yes, that's right. So what is your understanding of the word ontology? Yeah.
So we're getting answers which says it's a new field for me. Pratap is saying, is it holistic? Is it about holistic?
Yeah. Nice.
Sure.
Okay.
Anybody else, guys?
No idea. It's perfectly fine as well. But I do want to check in a little bit with your understanding of the meaning of the word ontology.
So interesting thing for me, Ivo, I can share is I got to know about ontology when I participated in a program which was done by Landmark Education.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I ever heard about ontology.
Yeah.
And how the whole process is about, how you identify with your being. So that's something which I'm aware of.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I have no other.
Okay. Well, very much so. So I hear holistic. I hear your explanation on the domain of the being. Absolutely. So basically, it is the study of being, if we translate it literally. So ontology is the study of being. And as such, we do not focus so much on what somebody is doing, the activity, but on who somebody is. So the classic, and maybe this is a classic corporate example, would be that there's a manager or a leader that says, you know what, the feedback I get quite consistently is that people in my team, they don't feel really heard or perhaps supported, or I don't really listen that well to them, right? And I would say a lot of them that tell us that as coaches probably get it from their wife or the spouse or the husband as well. So then a trainer or coach or might say, okay, let's see and let's work with you on traditional skills here, right? So let's see if we can work together. Let's see if there's a training or some coaching available around this. And through that, the manager or the leader perhaps learns to, in the domains of listening, learns to pause before responding, or maybe usually learns to make eye contact, or to do humming or paraphrasing, or to ask some more open-ended questions. So that's the doing part. An ontological coach would go a step further and say, well, hold on. So who is this person's being such that they or he or she doesn't listen? Maybe this person's being is closed, or their being is untrusting, or their being is aggressive, right? So who this person has become in a lifetime is a certain kind of person, and therefore listening skills are not going to be available or land with this person. So, because if who you are on the planet is closed, you can go to 100 listening skill courses, right? But you're not going to learn to listen while you are closed. So in a nutshell, or so in the core, the ontology is that question of who are you being? And if we take that as a model, right, nearly every coach, I think, is working with a client to produce a result or an outcome, right? And perhaps, Arvind, this is the time you can share the first slide with us, given that you got it.
No. So do you happen to have it ready with you by any chance?
Yeah, I need to. Okay, sorry, I sent it from my other PC. Can you, and in the meantime, I will talk about it. I'll send it.
Sure, you can. You can continue to check.
Can you check your mail if you're?
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you. So if you think about it in a way, it's schematically, right? So we're all here to support our clients in producing some different outcomes. And in order to do that, we need to take a action or a different action. That's what we call, so imagine, that's what we call transactional coaching or single loop coaching or learning. And obviously there's nothing wrong with that, can be very valuable. But an ontological coach goes a step beyond that, I would say. So if you would maybe have in the meantime, while we're waiting for the slide to load up. So if you would have a piece of paper, or you could draw it from left to right, you could say there's a letter O, then there's an arrow to the right, which points to an A, the letter A, and there's a arrow to the right, which points to the letter R. So there's an O, an A, and an R. And starting at the right, we're saying we're all after creating some outcome, some results. In order to create an outcome or result, we need to create some different action. That's what we call transactional coaching or single loop learning. In ontological learning, we say, okay, let's go first to the O. And the O stands for the observer. Actually, you can make if you were drawing it in that O, you can make a little O eyeball in there. And the O reveals this. It reveals how do you really see the world such that this action is available. And everyone is a unique observer, right? Example, like I said, I like football. I'm a big football fan, and I also play in the Dutch team in Singapore. In the Netherlands, where I'm from, we have 3 main teams, Feyenoord, Ajax, and PSV. And all of my team members in Singapore support one of these 3. And we do watch a lot of matches together. But trust me, when we watch 2 teams playing each other, we don't see the same match. There's a tackle on the field. Let's say a Feyenoord player is tackled by an Ajax player. the Feyenoord fan will see a foul and Ajax fan will see a firm but fair tackle. You probably have your examples, maybe in cricket or in politics, right? Where we have in the US Republicans and Democrats. So we all see the world in certain ways. And because of how we see the world, it limits the number of actions available to us. And as an ontological coach, we're helping you or the clients to see how you see the world. So we don't say we see the world better. We say we see it differently. So an ontological coach's job is to help you see how you see the world, or in our words, in our language that we use, to help you become a better observer of the observer that you are, such that you have more options for action available. And that is ontology in a nutshell.
Ivo, I'm afraid I haven't received it yet. Not sure what the issue is.
Okay.
Is it possible that you could?
Yeah, I can do that.
Just open and just click on share from your
Yeah.
side.
Yes, I will do that. Give me one
Thank
second.
you.
Bear with me, please. Yeah.
No problem.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is really the core model, what we call the O, the A, the R model. So at the right, you see the results. In the center, you see action that needs to be taken. And in the left, you see the O is actually 3 concentric circles. So let's talk about this a little while. So how do we study the observer that we are? How do we learn about how you see the world, right? And we break, as you see in this model, the observer down into 3 parts: body, emotions, and language. It's what we call the BEL model, the Bell model. Because every observer that I know has a body, and I assume you all have one. Every observer that we know has emotions, right? And interestingly, some of us would say we put mind instead of language. But actually, we put up language here for a couple of reasons. And one of them is that the way our mind shows up to us is in language. Well, if you think about it, right? So your thoughts only make sense to you when you turn them into language. And what you say out loud is a selection of your thoughts, but really amplified. So it's language, both showing up internally and externally. And interestingly, here you see coherency. That's when all of these 3 things match. Or another word, I think in leadership development, most of us would call it authenticity, which is when our bodies, emotions, and language match. And in the program that we offer, we have separate trainers for all parts. So we bring in specialists or experts in each of these 3 domains. Okay. So I'll leave this slide for now. And I want to talk into each of these domains a little bit to explore, to see if we can if I can offer you some distinctions there. So let's explore body or somatics first. Somatics is the Greek word for body. So in our faculty, we have Chris Balsley. He's from the US. He's a double black belt martial artist. He teaches osteopath at Naropa University. And it's fascinating. So he teaches people on the structure of your body. So he can actually look at you while you're standing, and he's observing you standing and sitting, and he can tell you your childhood, or he can inquire about your childhood. So his expertise is how your life story is showing up in your body. what's going on in here such that you have created the body shape that you have. What's going on here? So interestingly, when you start to study your body shape, you will see that your body is fundamentally linked to emotions and language. So at an extreme, right, to give an example, if you've over life, maybe your parents were very tough, or school was very tough for us, and we developed a very stay safe body. Then eventually, over 20, 30 years of doing this, it has become a habit. Then perhaps joy is almost impossible in this body. Happiness could come floatingly every once in a while, but this body does not allow for joy. To give you just really a snap experience, I would like to do a short practice with all of you. So my request is for you to participate, whether you're standing or sitting right now. Now both is fine. But first of all, I would like you to just observe your body disposition right now. So don't change anything about it, just observe it. Right? So just observe the body you're in right now. So most of you are seated. Where are your feet on the floor? Are they on the floor? Perhaps they're up. How are they positions? Are they straight or different from each other? Where's the weight in your feet? What's the position of your legs? Are they straight? Are they curled? How are you sitting in your chair? Is it straight or perhaps bended? Where are your arms? Where's your back? What's the position of your head? So what are you noticing right now? Pay attention to your breathing. Is it fast or slow? Is it deep, shallow? Is it in your throat or your chest or your belly? So what are you observing? What emotions live in this body right now? What emotions are available, which are not? So the starting point in the domain of somatics is always checking in. And then sometimes it's just creating this awareness that already has the capacity to change the observer that we are in that very moment. Okay? So I want to expand this exercise, so please stay in it. So for now, my request for you is to sit up straight if you're sitting. So feet on the ground, bottom in the chair, back against the back, your back against the back of your chair. Sit stable and upright. Okay. Now I'd like to invite you to roll your shoulders backwards. So roll your shoulders backwards. Put your arms up in the air and also backwards. Now also look up in the air. I can't do that right now for the sake of the exercise, but I want you to look up in the air, right? Have your eyes wide open, smile, and look up in the air. Lips not touching, but eyes open and mouth open. And then repeat after me. I'm very sad. Okay, and come back in the position. So how does it work? How is it to experience sadness in this body? Is it possible?
Awkward.
Awkward?
Awkward, yeah.
The body is in happy mode and my language is saying sad.
Exactly. And actually you're laughing about it, right? So this body disposition does not allow for an emotion of sadness, right? So, okay, now let's try sort of the opposite. So put your legs in front of you, or a slouch in your chair, or perhaps you want to sort of sit in this body of resignation, fold your arms or slouches beside you. And then again, I cannot do it because otherwise you might not hear it, but bend your chin to your chest, right? And look down to your belly. I want you to frown your eyebrows. And I want you to repeat after me, I'm so excited.
It's funny to do that.
It's funny to do that because sorry,
I'm
Arvind.
not feeling that. I'm not feeling excited.
No, body is not feeling excited, but I'm trying to say I'm excited.
Exactly. So when you start paying attention, right, to your body shape, that's the starting point of when you start to be able to make links, right? So how come this certain emotion is easily available to me? Or maybe this emotion is not as easy available to me? Or how come this emotion stays with me for such a long time, or it doesn't stay with me for a long time? You really see a different world as you just experience in this very, very simple basic exercise. But you see a different world with each body shape, right? So some of the body shapes are more transparent to you than others. But imagine in the morning when you get up, you walk to the wardrobe, and this time you're not just choosing the clothes that you're going to wear for that day, but also the body. So what body shape is going to serve you in that day? So what is required in that moment for this day to be successful? Is it a resolute body? Is it a flexible body? Is it a stable body? Or is it perhaps an opening, welcoming body? So it's interesting. I talked a little bit about Chris, who's one of our somatic experts. Another one is called Beatriz Garcia. She's from Mexico, and she spends, I think, half of her time actually of her life in India. But professionally, she spends her life in coaching and somatic movement. And her interest is not so much how your body is shaped, as is Chris, but her interest is how your body moves, or for some people, how it doesn't move. And what's interesting is that she works with where your energy moves and what moods are available for your body or not. Right. So, for example, I can imagine most or some of us at least are working in a corporate background, and the energy of body moving forward to achieve a goal is very easy to us corporate people. Right. But perhaps the movement of the energy in terms of flexibility and moving in different directions is not that easy accessible. And it's amazing. So in our programs, these two work together, not only to have you learn about yourself, but also to teach you the distinctions in the human body. And from that, as ontological coaches in the domain of the body, we wonder, what practices can we design or co-design with our clients so that those will support them in shaping the body that serves them in order to see what they want to accomplish. Okay. So let me pause around body and somatics here and see if there's any questions coming up already, and or later you can hold them for later when we move through emotions and language as well.
Any questions, guys?
So
No?
what does a coach do with the body language? Does he need to sense the energy levels of the client body?
If he needs to do that, I would say yes. In the domain that we work with, yes, that is an important part of observation. And it's actually, it's one of the 3 doorways for being in a conversation with a client.
How does it work when you do remote or telecoaching?
Yeah, good point. Good point. So it is different in a way, and still, we are looking at. I'm looking at video conferencing right now, right? So even if it's distant, my preference is to do Zoom calls all of the time, actually, or most of the time. And I do look for bodies, or I do ask people for how they're sitting, how they're moving, how they normally move through life. Or I ask them to stand up, and I do a practice with them if it's a safe environment to do that. Yeah. If the environment allows them to do that. Yeah.
So with the
Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I just have one last follow-up question on this. Would there be any legal constraints on this kind of approach when we expect client to do certain physical activities as part of coaching?
And what are you thinking of, or what is perhaps a concern that comes up for you?
Things like harassment and these kind of things. People
Right.
might not be able, they might have certain limitations physically, and we expect them to demonstrate or help us to understand their body language and etc.
Right. Yeah. It is a fair point, and this is where I think there are 2 scenarios I usually have in mind. One is we do a lot of leadership development in training rooms with people, and off the back of that we emerge into coaching, into one-on-one coaching with our clients. So this is an area where we build trust in the training room, and we take the somatics work from there. With clients that we have not been engaged with before, it is a more delicate approach, and asking the clients for permission to do a bit of somatics work. And I always explain first what the exercise is about, and then I'm asking if they're willing to participate in that or not. Yeah, it is a good concern to raise. Yeah. Okay, so why don't we move on into emotions right now? So the domain of emotions, in my assessment, emotions in businesses, perhaps generally in life, have been ignored for quite a long time. They are a bit inconvenient. So we know that everyone has them, but we're not very good at working with them. We don't delve into them. And actually in our line of work, we do delve into them. And in particular, because of our deep understanding of language, which I will tap into in a couple of minutes. So in order to make distinctions in emotions, we do need a linguistic distinction to talk about emotions. And nowadays, and probably some of you are aware that there's a lot of research available right now that shows that if you can assist people to name the emotion that they're having, it actually allows the emotion to do its work. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not always easy. Sometimes actually we work with teenagers, and my experience is looking at some of the children right now, they have basically 3 emotions. When we ask them, for example, so how was your school day, right? And the answer is good, bad, okay. And technically speaking, these are not even emotions. They are assessments of emotions. But overall, I would say, in a way, we are losing, or we have lost the ability to work with within this emotional domain. And so, what is there to say? What can we tell about emotions? First of all, emotions are so-called predispositions for action, right? It's an emotion that what puts us in motion. So if I'm angry, it's a predisposition. It predisposes me to fight. If I'm joyful, it predisposes me to celebrate, right? So an emotion is that what sets you in motion, and it leads, and it has a highly likelihood of certain action that is available from that emotion. Another distinction I would like to offer sort of in our language is we don't label our emotions as good or bad emotions, because emotions always teach us something, right? So the emotion of sadness tells us that we assess that we've lost something. It's an indication really of what's important to us, what matters in our lives. And hence, isn't it a great question to ask? What have I felt I've lost? You know, or ask a client, what do you felt you've lost? The emotion of anger, I just talked about, right? It tells us that we assess that our boundaries have been trespassed. And it really reveals our norms, our principles in life. I saw a video on YouTube last week where I saw traffickers. I thought it was horrible to watch, but I saw traffickers were taking away young children from their mother. Not sure if some of you have seen that circulated on YouTube. But the women used their anger to fight back, and actually some of them got their children back successfully. So in those situations, anger seemed to be the appropriate emotion. Anger is also an important emotion in a way that it's closely linked to dignity. People that don't have anger available often have problems with dignity, self-worth, or saying no, or saying, this is enough, this is the boundary, right? So like I just said, you know, I think this is a time where we find it hard to deal with our emotions, and actually also in the corporate domain, you know, we try to be composed and to control our emotions. And there is, in my assessment, a problem with that, because the issue is that we become closed off, we become flat over time. But unfortunately, it's not possible to say in life that I want to keep the positive emotions, but I don't want to see, or don't want to experience the negative ones. Because if we shut up the negative ones, we also shut up the positive ones. Right? And what also tends to happen is that the emotion that have been suppressed eventually they find the way out, but usually in spikes, and often towards the people that have nothing to do with it. So for instance, when you experience you're angry, you're furious at work with a colleague, and then you tend to suck it up because it's not appropriate to show anger at work. At the end of the day, we get home, and there's your son or your daughter, and you see something has not been picked up from the floor, and you feel this anger coming up, and then it's your son or your daughter that's paying the price, right? And you explode in front of them. I'm not suggesting that you should explode in front of your colleague, but it is important to have people learn, or to learn people, to teach people to allow the emotion to do its work. If it's in the right amount, at the right time, with the right person. Okay.
So
and we're always,
sorry,
yeah,
can I
go
come
ahead.
in here?
Yeah, please.
So I have a question here. So if the innermost emotion at that particular point of time is for me to give a sounding to someone, I want to really throw my fit at the colleague, right? In whatever version I try to control that emotion. See, even in the word that I'm actually using, I'm using the word control.
Right.
Right. So I have to control that emotion.
Right.
But still go ahead and complete, or there is something that I'm trying to create with that emotion, with my colleague. What I'm trying to create with the colleague has to happen through another version, not by throwing a fit.
Right. Right.
Right. So are you saying that is the other way that has to be learned?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful way of putting it. And,
okay.
and the way is in the awareness, really. So rather than suppressing the emotion and leaving it and sort of dismissing it, right? It is important, first of all, to notice the emotion. And then once we notice it, we have a choice. Sometimes the noticing already has it come down a little bit, not always, but there is a choice to make now and say, this is a very strong sensation coming up. What is it telling me? And do I allow some time today, tomorrow, tonight, this morning, next morning, to experience that emotion and see what it's telling me? What's it serving me? What is it revealing about what is so important to me right here, right now, or in that very moment? Right? So in that very moment, I would offer people the perspective of notice it, right? And find the right time to address it, to be in conversation around it. First of all, with yourself. And once we got a more depth understanding about, because I'll touch upon that in a later, the emotions are always linked to assessments that you have of a situation, of a person. And once we start looking for the groundedness of the assessments that we have, that's actually often a place where we can learn something about ourselves. And often we see it's not about the other person, it's about us, how we are seeing a situation or that person. Yeah.
Okay. So that release of the emotion happens based on me becoming aware of what the emotion that's happening within me, number one.
Yeah.
Second is analyzing within me as to what assessment I have at that particular moment.
Yeah.
Within me.
Yeah.
That might alter or change that energy from more of throwing a fit kind of an energy.
Yeah.
Into maybe giving a response on that energy.
Exactly. And making a conscious choice and saying, so what amount of anger, or perhaps its dignity, am I actually going to proactively use in this conversation with this person?
Okay.
Because perhaps it's the right thing to express anger in a certain amount, at a certain time, at the right time, with the right person.
Okay, so just taking an example. Sorry, I'm just coming in again.
Yeah, sure.
So the colleague I'm talking to, if I have to say, stop, just stop what you're doing. I just want them to stop what they're doing because that's not where we really want to go. And that's the fit that's coming to me.
Right.
But I become aware that my assessment is that this person doesn't know what he or she is doing. And that's why I want them to stop.
Right.
And it's coming as a form of yelling.
Right.
Instead, I think about it. I create the assessment that no, this person knows what they are doing. Maybe at this particular point of time, they're doing something which is not very conducive at this particular moment.
Right.
So I say, hey, you might want to try something else.
Right.
And I convert that and provide it to this particular energy. And if I have to see both these things, then that's the response. There's a change of response.
Exactly.
Right, and that's the awareness that you're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Sure. Okay.
Right. And in coaching, if a response of anger is showing up frequently for somebody, right? Obviously, there are practices to design together for people to release the anger. Right.
Right.
Because it's become a habit, and in order to sort of lose some of that habit, we need to develop new habits. So in life, it's not just that specific situation where we want to do it right. Perhaps we need to develop some practice to be with our anger in a different way and to allow it to come out in a stronger sense. Yeah.
Sure.
So would mindfulness be a good practice here?
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, I clicked your way. Yeah, absolutely. So so what's coming up for you when you think of mindfulness in relation to emotions?
No, in fact, for me, the question was it more to do with the cognitive, which is the mind, or with the emotion?
Right.
But I think from the explanation you gave to Arvind, I thought it is more being mindful, which would make us probably not react.
Right.
As a practice, probably would help anger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautifully. And in addition to that, there is a place to maybe more cognitively research this anger, because it's linked to certain assessments that we're holding. Something that seems to be so important to us that we want to uphold that standard or that norm or that principle or that feeling that injustice has been done. Right? And I'll come to assessments in a minute. Yes, please, Anuradha.
Yeah, so I guess just taking on from what Arvind said, so and also what I heard you say was that when somebody is experiencing, say for example, going back with the same example of anger,
right?
So it's not, what I'm taking away from what you're saying is it's not only about why I got angry on that person or a reaction to that person's action.
Right.
Also means that it would give me some time to introspect about why did I get angry in the first place.
Right.
And what is it that really made me angry? It could not be not necessarily it's always only the actions of the person which is making me angry.
Right.
It could be something, it maybe gives me time to even introspect and be aware of what is it that is actually triggering that anger within me.
Exactly.
And to be able to work on that and then figure it out.
Exactly. Because in a way, that person, it's not about that person, right? It's just an event where something within us is triggered. So what's going on inside of us that has us trigger, and that's the inner work. That's where we look into what emotion service, what assessments am I holding about people that are showing that kind of behavior. What does it reveal about me? Where does it show up? Where did it start? How's it serving me? How's it serving other people? So, I think that's the exploration, or one of the gateways into a conversation with a client, to support the client to explore that. Rather than, like you say, being in reaction to it. Yeah.
So, Ivo, what Anu just shared is she questioned that concept of who am I being? And is it from there this is coming from? Would that be an example?
So, sorry, say that again. She's questioning?
No, she said, whatever she said, what she did with her,
right,
is basically trying to answer the question, who am I being?
Right.
Is that fair? That she questioned that within herself, and then those answers came.
Yes,
towards
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So to close a bit on the part of the emotions, and I'm really, maybe some other place, some other time, we can spend a couple of hours really about the domain of emotions. So this is the domain where, obviously as coaches, we ask the question. So, what are your emotions serving up for you right now, right? What possibility does this specific emotion that you're experiencing right now open up? But also, what possibilities are closed down in this emotion? What's perhaps a more powerful emotion given what you want to accomplish? How can you shift it? Generally in life, what emotions are easily available to you, which are not? So, as you know, in the world of ontology, we're actually looking for working with our clients to develop some emotional agility, if you like, to develop that. Okay. Let me move on into language, right? And when I say language, it's it's really, I think, in the midst of the last century that our understanding of language has really changed. With language, we used to refer, obviously, the foreign language, for instance, but we never really started a thing called language. So how does it work? What does language do? And there was actually some philosophers that started looking at that and made some pretty big and wild claims around it. And the first thing they started saying is that that language is what human beings use to change the future. So language is what human beings use to change the future. So it's not just descriptive, it's actually generative, right? Secondly, what they said is language is how we create our image to other people in the world. So what other people think of us is created in language. And when I say language, again, it's not just I'm not talking about the language that comes out of your mouth, but also the internal conversation with whomever that lives up here. For some of us, that's one person. For some, that's perhaps a whole committee. But how we communicate up here is also through language. So let's try this. If you don't believe how powerful language is, this is my favorite example. So if you think back of 2018 so far, right? Okay, so this year so far. And every time you said the word yes, I would like you to replace it with the word no. How different would your life be? If you think about it. For a start, you wouldn't be here tonight. But think about it. Just changing the word yes into a no, and you do that for a whole year, how radically different your life would be right now. And that's language, or the power of language. So let's make a couple of distinctions in this so that we can break it down, that we can get our hand around it. Actually, every time that we talk, we are doing one of the five following things. We're either making an assertion, we are making a declaration, we're making an offer, we're making a promise, or we make a request. So we're either making an assertion, declaration, an offer, a promise, or a request. Every time we speak, we're doing either one of these. And most of us, it's transparent to us. We don't know what it is that we're doing. We're happily talking away to somebody or somebody else. But here again, if we're looking at distinctions in the domain of ontology, we're listening for the distinctions that our clients can make or cannot make in those five categories, so to say. So I'm just going to highlight two of them for the sake of the time, just to get a flavor of them and the power that some of them really hold. So the first one, it's the basic one, and we often call it the boring member of the speech acts. It's called the assertion, and it's the easiest one to understand. So assertions are when you make a statement and they're either true or false. They're always based in history. It was true or false before you said it. So example, for when I say, this is an iPhone, it was called an iPhone before I turned up to you and said it was an iPhone. Therefore, it is an assertion. However, there was a point in time in history when Steve Jobs said, this is an iPhone. And at that time, when he said it, it was not an assertion. It was a declaration that created a new word in the vocabulary of most humans on the planet. But in a nutshell, the only thing that you learn about, it's more about the object than about the speaker. When I say this is a pen, you learn more about the pen than you do about me. So the focus here is on the thing being asserted. So these are assertions. They're either true or false. The pen was here before, and you learn more about the pen than you do learn about me. Right? So they can be true or false. So a person who continuously makes false assertions, we call them a liar. But these are in a nutshell assertions. Very boring, very easy to understand. So I think we're all experts now on assertions. I would like you to make one very basic exercise to do with, I invite you to do that with me right now. And if you have a piece of paper or maybe your iPhone in front of you, I would like you to just list 5 5 things about you on a piece of paper, or type them in your iPhone, or write them down somewhere. So 5 things about you. Okay. Okay, so we all done that? Okay, now I would like you to write down 3 things about a person you don't really like. Could be even hate, but if you don't have that strong emotion, negative emotion towards a person, the person you like least, so to say. So 3 things about the person you don't like. Okay, all done then? Okay, good. So can you, in your chat group or maybe verbally, can you tell me how many of the list of 5 things about you think are assertions? So how many of the 5, so I see fingers, 3, Dr. Rudra, somebody else, or you put it in the chat group? So how many of the list of 5 do you think are assertions? Three, Rudra, 3, okay.
Yeah, three for me too.
Okay, 3, okay. So let me hear from some of you, and I can tell you whether it's an assertion or not. So who wants to bring in the 3 you mentioned, or the 2 perhaps you mentioned as assertion? Yeah, Pratap?
Passionate.
Sorry?
Passionate.
That's not an assertion.
It's not an assertion. High energy.
Not an assertion.
Go-getter.
Not an assertion.
Okay.
Beautiful
Easygoing.
things about you, but they're not assertions.
Easygoing.
Not an assertion.
I'm a living being.
Assertion.
I'm a human being.
Assertion.
My name is Rudra.
Assertion. Anybody else?
An engineer by education.
Assertion.
So I said my name is an assertion. I stay in Mumbai. I'm a HR professional.
All assertions.
Yeah, then I said I love traveling. That's not an assertion.
Very true. Okay, great. You get the hang of it. Okay. Okay, so to get a distinction here, it's not all about facts, right? It's true or false, but it's not necessarily fact. So let's have a look here. If some of them are not assertions, what are they? Okay, and I must be aware of the time as well, Arvind. I'm seeing right now. So do you
Yes.
allow me 5 more minutes?
Yes, 5 more minutes, guys. Okay. Yes.
Is that okay with you?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going into the domain of declarations, and one specific form of declarations is called assessments. So assessments are a form of declarations, like I say, that they assess things. Interestingly, assessments are never true or false. They can be well grounded. I'm sure we all have assessments. You probably have assessments about your prime minister, for instance, but it doesn't make them true, even if all your friends agree with you. It just means it's a very popular assessment. You can ground them, you can have assertions that support them, but the assessment can never be true. So most of the people that I meet throughout Asia would say I'm tall. Yet, even if they would all agree, it's not an assertion. I'm 181. That's an assertion. It's either true or false. If I were to say I'm 175, it would still be an assertion, but it's just false. But the minute I'm going to add, or you're going to add short or tall, it adds a judgment or a comparison against some kind of standards. Right? Because there are places in the world where I am tall and there are places where I'm small. Like I said, I'm 181. In Indonesia, I'm tall. When I'm in the Netherlands, I'm actually just below average. So you see, short or tall tells us more about the speaker's standards. So when you say you're short or tall, we see your standards for height. And therefore, assessments as a very powerful form of declarations reveal how we see the world. So then, if we listen to the assessments you or your client holds, it tells you really how they see the world. And here's the problem with it. Assessments are incredibly future generative. And the reason they are future generative, it's this problem exactly with facts. Because we've become very lazy with our language, so to say. So you use this to continue this example. So I'm 181 is an assertion. The correct language for tall is therefore, I should say, I'm 181, assertion, and I assess myself as tall. But we don't say that. We say I'm tall like it's a fact, right? So we say assessments like they are assertions. So your brain just see the image of, okay, I'm tall then. I will always be tall. Like in the same way, like I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm Indian, I'm Dutch, I'm the youngest, I'm the oldest in the family, I'm a father, I'm a mother. But we treat assessment as if they are assertions, and then we lead a life really to make them come true. So to give you an example, I would say almost all over the world, at least most of the countries I go to, men have a shared assessment about women's ability to drive a car. So men generally think that women drive generally how? Bad, or at least not as well as men. But look what happens. So there's this gentleman driving a car. The car in front of him indicates I'm going to the left, but then changes its mind. It suddenly slows down to stop, but it changes its mind. It indicates right. Clearly doesn't know what it is doing. So what does the man say to himself? That must be a woman driving, right? Well, here's what's interesting though. So in this example, suppose this man overtakes the car and looks in the window and see that it's a man actually driving. But does he change because of that event? Would he change his assessment? No, not at all. He says that man drives like a woman. True or not, right? So in other words, we tend to have this desire to change reality to match our assessments. Recently, there was this famous experiment in school where they played a trick on some of the teachers. And it was the beginning of the school year. And they told this group of teachers, you're the lucky ones, you're getting the smart kids. And the other group of teachers, they told them, okay, that's going to be challenging. You're going to have the less smart kids. So, but in reality, the kids were equally smart, or on average, equally smart, so to say. But what do you think what happened to the grade of the kids? And it's actually true. Of this group, the grades went up. Of the second group, the grades went down. And it's because the teachers taught from their own assessments. So our assessments are so powerful that we have them come through. So on a final note, I want you to have a quick look on the 3 things you wrote down about the person you don't like or you'd like less. And my guess is they're probably not assertions. My guess is there are assessments. Would that be true? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And, you know, because, and that makes sense, because when we look at other people, we look at other people through assessments. And here's really the thing. Whatever you've written on this piece of paper, this is how you see that person. Actually, you have no other choice than to see that person other than through these lenses. Whereas I'm pretty sure there are likely other people on the planet that see them in a different way, that have different experience of them. Maybe their children, or maybe their spouse, or maybe their parents, or maybe friends or colleagues. In fact, if you're willing to be really brave enough, and these 5 things, or sorry, I asked you to write down the 3 things you've written down about that person actually, again, tells you something about you or about me. Things that are important for you, because assessments tells us more about the person making the assessment than the person being assessed. And therefore, we'll have a challenge creating a future with you. For that person, it's going to be hard. So for instance, when I assess somebody as lazy, they could work pretty hard the next day. But then I'll probably say they're less lazy because I'm looking through the lens of laziness, or maybe through the lens of work ethics. And I'm not open to other possibilities or other lenses to assess or to ground their behavior or their work that they do. So I'm not saying we should not make assessments, because we need to make assessments. We need judgment. They're important to us to navigate through life. But in a way, we are biologically designed to listen more to negative assessments, more strongly than positive assessments. Right? If you see suddenly a snake in front of you on the road, you are designed to stay away and not say, I wonder, is it a male or a female snake? Okay. So on a final note, there's a link between all 3 domains, and there's a strong link between emotions and language, because every single emotion you've ever had is based on an assessment. So suppose I would be in the room or bedroom, wherever you are right now, next to you, and I would slap you on the head. What emotion would come up? Probably anger or something in that direction. And are you angry because I hit you? No, it's not the hitting that makes you angry. It's the assessment. Because if I would say that there was a scorpion on your head, the emotion would immediately change to thankfulness or gratitude. So the hitting on the head was neutral. The events in your life do not generate the emotions that you have. It's your assessment of the event that does. Okay. I'm going to pause here. These are the 3 areas that ontology studies: body, emotions, and language. For me, as an ontological schooled coach, my job is to help my clients see how they see the world through these 3 doorways, to support them in becoming a better observer of the observer that they are, such that ultimately they have more options for actions available to them. So let me pause here, and this is where I like to pause, and I hope I delivered on my promise to share a bit on ontological learning and to give you a sense of distinctions that we're using in those 3 domains.
Can I have a quick question, please?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
The center part which you mentioned, if I remember, was coherent.
Right.
Could you explain how does the client experience that? Because has it to do with any connection with any levels of development or anything like that? Just wanted to understand what would that convergence mean.
Yeah, the convergence is where, well, perhaps take this Perhaps take this listening I started off with as an example, right? Where we say, manager says, okay, I get the feedback, I don't listen. And I go to a course and I learn some techniques to do it. However, the feedback doesn't really change. I'm still experiencing not opening. So in the domain of body, you might explore, so what body shape does this client have or not have that doesn't allow openness? So how can I co-create a body that's open, right? To let things in. So how can we develop practices to make that happen? In the domain of emotions, what would we come across in terms of listening would be empathy, perhaps. So how does the emotion of empathy play a role in this person's life? Is it available to this person? Yes or no? When is it? When it's not? What's the life story build up here that emotion is limited available or to some extent? And in languages, so what's the internal conversation about those emotions and that body? So what's the assessment the person is holding about being open, or perhaps about being vulnerable, about empathy? What assessments live there? Or, and we haven't touched upon all of them, but maybe what declarations have you made in the past that are competing with creating an assessment of it's actually very welcome to be vulnerable? So that's where we look for a way to create coherence in these three domains.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. So you guys can stay on or even write questions to Ivo directly. I think I've shared the details across with you guys in the invite. Ivo, thank you so much. I think this is wonderful. Completely new paradigm of how we actually see things, specifically from a client's perspective, and also with the impact of coaching. I think you've just not even scratched the surface of what ontology could actually mean for the coaching world. But I think it was just wonderful. But thank you so much for giving us in a more simpler way for us to understand and connect with what ontology is all about. So really thank you. A question to you is, what reading would you recommend for this topics? We have somebody asking the question to you. Is there any particular book or something that you would recommend? Yeah,
absolutely. So obviously in our program, there's a lot of reading there, but I'm happy to share a couple of readings that are freely accessible to you. And I think that delve into each of the three domains a bit more than I could spend this hour with you. So I'll send it to you, Arvind, if that's okay with you.
That's fair enough.
Yeah,
that's fair enough.
Okay.
So you can share some read-ups, something that I can share it across to the people.
Yeah,
or even online videos.
I'll send you one or two articles with some and that has some recommended readings and links to videos.
Absolutely, that'll be great. That'll be great. Yes,
I'm more than happy to share that.
Great. Thanks, Ivo, and thanks all. Thank you so much again for coming in, and we will have very similar topics coming in for next month too. I'll keep you guys posted and look out for your calendar invites on the same.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Thanks, Ivo. Take care. Have a nice trip back home.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.